well as the section in Datong, which is not principally on Jianqing, the section on Jianqing, because it really explores her as a performer in some unique ways. Now, to look at one of the things I think that's quite striking about Love and Death in Montmartre is the fact that it bridges fiction and documentary and looks at fiction and nonfiction, explores that divide. And this is something that characterizes Evans' work throughout his career, beginning, which includes all of his fiction films that also have that overlap. There's always a link to a nonfiction component within each film. So when we look at this kind of overlap, I think it's also important to look at the film in the context of his more recent films, such as Raise the Umbrellas and We Have Boots. These films about Hong Kong political movements and the situation in Hong Kong, I think also has a lot of overlap with this film, in that Evans is really putting Qiu Miaojin in the context of a global movement for LGBTQ plus rights. And within this context, we see a certain kind of overlap with putting figures such as Denise Ho and Raise the Umbrellas within that context as well. So this focus on lesbian political expression is something that has come up recently in his work, but that also sort of bridges this interest in the political as well as in the expressive, with someone like Denise Ho as a singer, and of course Chao as a writer. When we look at this too, I'm going to be quoting from an interview that Evans did with Dan Zhang, which I think is quite a very good way to kind of see his thought process and his creative process as he was approaching this particular project, which he originally did for Hong Kong television. I think that when you look at it, clearly the importance of the relationship between Hong Kong and Taiwan in the film, as well as that relationship to this transnational movement to understand LGBTQ plus expression within the global sphere, is quite important. And I think that he's making some interesting parallels between Hong Kong and Taiwan here that we might be talking about through the course of the conference, because clearly this conference is located here in Hong Kong, looking at this Taiwanese figure and her transnational journeys to Europe, etc. So I think it's kind of interesting to see these locations here in his film as something that might be structuring what we're going to be talking about today. Now, when we look at this kind of transnational socio-political context, I think that a lot of it is expressed through what I'm going to talk about a little bit more within my time, through the performance, through the performative element in the film. So, we have Zhi Jiawei appear in the film talking about marriage rights, but then we also have the figure of Chao, or the stand-in for Chao, in a bridal gown. This commentary on her past as it relates to our present, and kind of ongoing issues within the queer community, I think is quite important in the film. So we have this expression through these metaphors that are inspired by Chao's work, the bride coming from Last Words, and then the crocodile, of course, coming from the Nose of the Crocodile. So we have these metaphors running through, and then we also have, of course, interviews running through the film. And when we look at these interviews, I think that a lot of important key themes come up, and the key themes come up that are often buried in Chao's work, but that are of interest to Evans in terms of his own work, has to do with that political element, the importance of the political dimension that's in Chao's work, and the way in which she has been appreciated as a pioneering political figure. And I think the interview with Cixu really brings this up, particularly once I said in that, again, as I was saying, in that global dimension, that a concept of a revolutionary quality to Chao's work that I think that Evans really finds. And that's what made me think that as much as it's like those other films I mentioned, when I see the film, I really think of The Life and Times of Wu Zhengxian, which of course is not about lesbianism or about queer politics in the least, but is about politics and is about Hong Kong politics vis-a-vis the mainland. And when I think about it, I find that there are certain kind of common elements in the two films, with Evans placing Chao within a certain kind of context in the same way that he does such a fabulous job of placing Wu Zhengxian in a certain kind of context. A life and times. And very much I see the Chao film as not simply a biography of Chao, but also as a life and times of Chao. And a lot of similarities that I've just listed here, including the fabulous use of street theater and performance of various types to comment on Chao as a figure, the Parisian connection with Wu, of course, being in Paris at one point in his career, as well as Chao's importance, Paris is an important part of her life, the interviews and reenactments working together, and then also, perhaps most importantly, because there is the one queer element, perhaps in the Wu film, is the John Woo short in the film, Dead Knot, which is a queer experimental film, which resonated for me with this kind of intertextual quality that Evans really brings out in the film. So different times and different issues, but certain kinds of commonality of technique in those two films really came to the fore for me. When we look at the style and this kind of cine biography and a particular perspective and framing that Evans brings to the film, I think that we really see here a very different approach, which opened up Chao's work for me in a way that I hadn't thought of before, really placing her in a world of performance that links her films to her writings in a way that I hadn't thought of before. So when we look at the use of the crocodile as this flaneuse walking through the streets of the city, and we realize this hybrid image of the immigrant exile and the queer framing of that immigrant exile, we realize that these themes are being brought forth from the work in a way that I think is quite evocative. The same thing goes with this way in which the street performance really visualizes for me the existential questions at the heart of Chao's writings in terms of sexual identity, public appearance, and the politics of being a lesbian in public space. We also have this kind of dialectical quality that I find in a lot of Evans's films, where he's teasing out a lot of that, the contradictions within Chao's oeuvre, as well as in her personal life. And I will wrap up very quickly. I really appreciated too the way in which the film pays tribute to Chao as a filmmaker and as a cinephile. Reading through her books, especially, you see all of these references to Tarkovsky, etc., and seeing these kinds of references pop up in the film, such as to the Carnet film, Children of Paradise, and then seeing her own films incorporated as part of this vision is really points to something in Chao that speaks across film and literature. And when we bring in La Yue and her last words from Montmartre and her reenactment of the film as well, we have this kind of rich visual texture that gives us this dialogic quality to the film that I think really expresses something that I hope that we talk about a lot in this conference, and that is this kind of queer transnational conversations across literature and film, and the way in which Chao's work as both a filmmaker and as a key literary figure work together in order to give us this picture of a time that still speaks to our own. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gina, for that wonderful.
Stop sharing screen. There we go.
For that wonderful presentation and commentary that really get to so many important aspects of this conference. I'll now introduce Mike Ingham, who has been teaching English studies as the professor of the English department at Lingnan University since 1999. Previously, he worked as the head of modern languages at the British School of Gran Canaria in Spain. And on arriving in Hong Kong as English Language Enhancement Coordinator for Hong Kong Education Department at the Institute of Language in Education. And he's also a founder of the Member of Theatre Action, a Hong Kong-based drama group, which specializes in action research on more literary drama texts. And Mike is very humble. He didn't include any of his publication in his file to me, but I'm just gonna have to read some of those for your reference. He is most recently the author of Stage Play and Screenplay, The Intermediality of Theater and Cinema from Routledge in 2017, Documenting Film and Hong Kong from Edinburgh U Press 2014, and Johnny Toad PTU in the New Hong Kong Cinema series 2009, and also Hong Kong, A Cultural History from Oxford U Press in 2007. So I'll turn things over to Mike.
Sorry, thank you very much, Alvin. I'm going to share the content now. This is my PowerPoint. Very simple, I'm afraid, just notes. So you've got the visuals with Gina, but my talk really dovetails nicely with Gina's because I'm interested in, what I would focus on is the intermediality of Evans's film, and particularly, and to pick up on Gina's word, the dialogism, the dialogic relationship with between Qiu's text, the printed word of Qiu's text, and Evans's cinematic representations. It's intermedial work. I mean, there are challenges about that because, you know, how do you represent a work of essentially a fictional work of words on the screen? In fact, Evans does that, but we'll explore how he does it. But there are challenges. I want to look at the way he responds to those challenges. So it's an intermedial poetic documentary, and I think, as Gina showed you, many other movies, documentaries in Evans's back catalogue show you that very similar techniques. It's a very idiosyncratic style, and it's essentially intermedial. So what is intermediality? Media changes and correlations between media within an increasingly mediatized culture. It's this sort of hybrid approach to filmmaking, very idiosyncratic. It's based on personal reciprocal method of interacting aesthetically, and that's really important because Evans isn't just documenting in that sense. It's what we call a poetic documentary. So he interacts aesthetically with the film subject's life and work, and we saw that with The Rose of the Name, which is on Dong Kai-cheng's work, on Da Tong, on the life and times of Wu Zhongying. So this kaleidoscopic technique of Evans's life, of Evans's films rather, merges the real life events and the conversations with these surreal and poetic images. We saw this with the Flannery, the flaneurs, or the crocodile. You know, there are many images in the film of the Qiu's crocodile motif character wandering through the streets of Paris and various journeys. So this composite mode is a factual documentary because it has talking heads, interviews with people who knew Chao, including Ari Heinrich, Bonnie Hui, those sort of, you know, her translators, but also other people who knew her well, friends. So it's very composite mode. There's a sort of alchemy in Evans's style. He puts these things together and it comes out somehow, a work of art, a film comes out of it. He'll tell you more, I'm sure, how he does it. So, you know, the street footage and also Gina mentioned the political side. Of course, you know, much of that has a political undertone. Of course, the same-sex marriage celebrations, because that's only passed around the same time in Taiwan. The legislation was passed at the same time, but the film was made. So, but he also, and as with previous films, he includes dance sequences, which evokes, I think, it gives you a sense of the sensuality of the book, of the books, rather her works, her life, and the passion, and also, but it's an abstraction in a way. The dance sequences work to give you the sensual side of her work, I think. So these, and also dramatic reenactments, not de-enactments, so reenactments, visual prompts, using surviving photos of Qiu, of the subject, and images, visual tropes from her writing. Plus, he recreates these theatrical scenes from the novels, and you know, there are visual metaphors like the extracts from the Japanese puppet theater in the brief Japan sequence. So what we get is a film of traces and fragments, and I called my presentation, perhaps pretentiously, à la recherche de Qiu Miaojin, echoing Proust's novels about in search of lost time, essentially. So it's a memorial reconstruction, but it traces. I think the tracing, the search, this heuristic quality of the film is very, very important. And as I say, I think it does echo the style of other biopics or bio-documentaries by Evans. I think what he does successfully, to me anyway, I only read Qiu's works recently because of the conference, and I was really fascinated by them, and I love them, and particularly the echoes of it in Last Words from Montmartre. So this confessional mode of her works, you know, her works deal with this liminal gender national identity, and I think that's reflected in Evans's transnational style, liminal pluralistic cinematic style. So Life and Death in Montmartre is a factual documentary about her and her writing, a poetic essay about her short life, and as Gina mentioned, there's found footage of these of her very brief experimental films, Revelries of Ghosts and Guide Me to Sleep. So this composite, I think, achieves what we might call a transtextual cinema. So transtextual seems to have echoes to me of transgender, transnational identities. It's pluralistic, it challenges the boundaries. So I think Evans has always been doing that with his films anyway, but we see this is a perfect example of how he does it. So again, another concept is that of a hybrid of remembering and imagining. So these dramatic reenactments, for example, of the bunny scenes, the burial, the philanderie, the crocodile motif, the veiled bride motif. So these sequences combine together with the Cixous, Hélène Cixous, who's a playwright, a very famous feminist writer, post-structuralist. You get these. I think you also get these in her works, as I remember, Notes of a Crocodile, particularly in Last Words from Montmartre. There's the German poet, or Czech German poet, Rainer Maria Rilke. They started his novel Notebooks of Malte Laurent Thoridsbrigge with this quote, so this is where people come to live. I would have thought it's where they come to die. So that is evoked in Evans's film. It's early in the film. So there's a very felicitous connection there with Notes of a Crocodile. Where the idea is that these are notebooks. This is somehow reconstructions. It's semi-autobiographical. I would say thinly veiled semi-autobiographical fiction, because in the novels you get these characters who are alter egos for Qiu and herself and her life and her relationships. So anyway, the challenge. The paradox is, so writing and love relationships and feelings are personal and private, but filmmaking inevitably is collective, is public. The aesthetic is not individual, it's collective. So the problems of concretizing images in dramatic reenactments, which are they're fleeting verbal descriptions, and they are extracts. They are placed on the screen in some kinds. So it's this fusion of words and images. They provide a snapshot of the books, but without the continuity of the books. So it's a very different experience. I would also call it a kind of bricolage, the post-structural concept of bricolage, putting things together. The aesthetics of film demand that kind of continuity. It's a very different kind from prose fiction. When you think about her writing, and this, I think her friend in Tokyo says this, the woman who knew her, grew up with her from Taiwan, only with writing could she heal her body and soul. So her life was a paradox. So the film itself, I think, is a paradox, or it presents that paradox. As the publisher, her publisher, English publisher, says, it's a striking book. It's very much a composition and carefully constructed for all that it seems to have been written in an absolute frenzy. So there's this tension, this paradox between the written word and the screen representations of it. But I think the opening and the closing scenes, this sort of bookending, the bookends, the framing of the film as an elegy for Qiu, but also an affirmation of her legacy, because you get these celebratory scenes of Taiwan's the legislation, which is, and as Gina was saying, that's the political dimension to the film particularly, and also Evans, of course, has shots of outside the Stonewall Bar. So I think there is a sense of an achievement. It's not the books. You've got to read the books. You've got to read the novels. But you watch the film in parallel. So that's what intermediality does, I think. So I must say it's a pleasure to be invited to this conference. I mean, I'm an Evans person rather. My knowledge of Evans's film is not about Qiu Miaojin. So, but it's a wonderful opportunity to read her, and I've loved it. I really enjoyed both of those books. They're challenging, but they really are. I can see just from the English translation. Translation comes into it as well, of course, because you're not reading the original. So that's another experience. I can't read the original Chinese, but anyway, thank you very much. Thanks for listening.
And thanks, Mike, for that wonderful commentary that really introduces key concepts in intermediality and postmodernism and affirming Qiu's legacy. So the next comments will be from Dr. Shi-yan, Zhao Shi-yan, who is a research assistant professor in the Department of Visual Studies at Lingnan University. He holds a PhD in cinema studies from NYU and was an Interact postdoctoral fellow at Columbia University. In addition to NYU and Columbia, he has taught at Hong Kong Baptist U. Beginning next year, he will be a research fellow at Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok. His latest publications include a monograph, Queer Representations in Chinese Language Film and the Cultural Landscape, from Amsterdam University Press in 2020, along with many articles on transnational media, independent cinema, queer cinema, film history and creative industries, and so on. In many journals such as International Journal of Cultural Policy, Transgender Studies Quarterly, Chinese Independent Cinema Observer, and in some of the latest anthologies such as Curating Taiwan Cinema, 32 New Texts from U of Michigan Press. So I'll just turn things over to Shi-yan now.
So that's can you see the PPT? Sorry.
So we just made you a co-host a few seconds ago. And
Okay, so that's the title of my talk. But first of all, thank you for inviting me for this amazing conference. And yeah, it has been delayed for 2 years, but I'm still very honored to be here. So the title of my talk is Processing Qiu Miaojin through the essay film. So what is the essay film? Is it a genre comparable to fiction, documentary, or experimental film? Well, documentary theorist Michael Renoff notes the essayistic work's resistance to generic encirclement. Laura Rescaroli begins her study on the essay film by stating that we should resist the urge to crystallize the essay film into a genre. And the reader, Meyer likewise suggests that the essay is not a genre like any other, and perhaps not a genre at all. Here by the essayistic, I follow a broader understanding of the term to mean a mode that can emerge from the realm of fiction or nonfiction, yet destabilizes conventional distinctions of genre, style, and even medium. With the loosening of its bonds to genre, the essayistic simultaneously animates an alternative set of conditions, meaning the essayistic in film as process, as experience, as experiment, characterized by an avowed resistance to generic classification, with experimentation at its core.
Shi-yan, just interrupt quickly. We still are not able to see your PowerPoint slide. Sometimes you have to expand and minimize your PowerPoint file in order to let Zoom detect it. So maybe close it and open it again.
Okay, sorry. That's weird. So can you see it now?
We can see your laptop
It's
desktop, but it's fine. Yeah, you can open it from there if you.
Oops. I'm so sorry. It's weird. Oh, here.
Great. Yeah, we can see it now. Great, thank you.
So sorry. So characterized by an avowed resistance to generic classification with experimentation at its core, the essay film is arguably the postmodern matrix of all generic possibilities. For Rescaroli, it is a field of experimentation and idiosyncrasy. To the extent that we can accept Edgar Morin's comprehensive outlook. Talking of essay film, I would rather refer to the attitude of he who attempt. In French, essay also means attempt. To debate a problem by using all the means that cinema affords, all the registers and all the expedients. Rescaroli has also usefully summarized essay film's textual commitment in one sentence. I, am going to share with you my personal line of reasoning on this topic. I used to tell my students to imagine the viewing of an essay film as jumping in a car to start an intimate journey with the filmmaker, during which we engage in a continuing conversation with the filmmaker, and the direction of our conversational topic may meander or adjust, sometimes through free associations, in accordance or in conflict with the changing scenarios surrounding our moving vehicle, namely in accordance or conflict with all the illustrative materials provided by the filmmaker that are mediated by different genres, styles, mediums, and that may cut across diverse cultures and histories. With our viewing of Love and Death in Montmartre, then Alvin Chao invites you and me for an intimate journey through which we participate in the processing of what Gina Marchetti terms the topical of an essay film. Here in particular, a discursive processing of novelist-artist Qiu Miaojin. To facilitate this, Alvin Chao incorporates a wide range of materials, such as the newly conducted interviews with literary scholars, Qiu's close friends, mentor, god sister, those involved in translating or publishing her books, and those deeply touched by her work. Also integrated into the film are Qiu's photos, her audio-visual creations, the reveries of ghosts, and the Please Guide Me to Sleep in particular, as well as her writings, including the acclaimed Notes by a Crocodile and the Last Words from Montmartre, her short stories, and her posthumously published diaries. Her writings are thoughtfully rendered through various formats, from the intertitle and overlay to the voiceover and on-screen recitation, and to the enactment of selected characters or plots that are either filmed by Chen or, in some cases, borrowed from a student production based on Last Words from Montmartre. Shot by the Chinese national Lotte Yue in Hong Kong and Shenzhen in 2010. Another innovative device employed by Chen is the theatrical dance or stage performance capturing in a more abstract manner the often uneasy states of mind or situations involving Qiu Miaojin. Of course, there's the exuberant soundtrack consisting of numerous songs in Mandarin, French, and Cantonese, rendered through different singing or recording styles, along with Igor Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring and a couple of other piano scores, forms yet another layer of this discursive construction. Far from the conventional biopic that focuses on the historical being of the subject and provides an impression of its loyal depiction. Love and Death in Montmartre is fully aware of the impossibility of the truth of Qiu Miaojin. It is evidenced by the enactment of Qiu that simultaneously highlights a distancing effect. Qiu in the film is played not by one, but a number of performers, and none of them clearly show their faces behind the chiffon or masks, while those who speak may voice through an echoing, denaturalizing effect. What comes forward instead is a Bakhtinian orchestration of Qiu Miaojin that is not only mediated by various voices and discourses, but those voices and discourses also live beyond Qiu's own life with echoing effects. A few quick thoughts I'd like to mention regarding Qiu Miaojin in Chan's orchestration. A crucial intervention of Chan's discursive construction arguably reorients Qiu's legacy away from Taiwan literature and towards world literature. This has been facilitated by the expanded circulation of Qiu's works through their more recent translation into English and then French. Through the lens of Sinophone, Qiu's legacy can possibly also be approached from the stance of Sinophone French literature, as her writings in Chinese since 1993 were mostly done in France. And the second, from the queer Sinophone perspective, Chan's film manifests a reversed dynamic regarding queer cultures in the Chinese-speaking world, with Taiwan now taking the lead and Hong Kong being the next. Recall the short film based on less words made by a Chinese national while studying in Hong Kong, while mainland China remaining in limbo, now even more so. The China-centrism underlying much of Chinese studies or diaspora studies can be questioned through a queer lens. Third, it is fascinating to hear about different thoughts on Qiu's suicide, and I find Qiu's close friend Lai Xiangying's remarks rather moving. Against the general perception that sees Qiu's suicide as a planned performance that demonstrated her will to death, Lai points out the strong will to life behind Qiu's suicidal act. In dialogue with other discourses on Qiu's death, Lai's testimony sheds light on the paradoxical complexity of the subject. Fourth, the discourse of Qiu is further contextualized in the larger social discourse of marriage equality. As noted by Ji Dawei in the film, Qiu herself did not really partake in the Tongzhi movement in Taiwan. And I'd like to remind that marriage equality does not answer all the prejudices against LGBTQ people. Not only does marriage equality here only apply to same-sex couples, while the more progressive agenda from the community was to recognize forms of intimacy and to legalize diverse familial formation, 多元成家. But in fact, early in the film, when we see the footage of a pride march in downtown Taipei, the participants were chanting and advocating for gender equality education, 性平教育, which has been another major battlefield in the community's fight for equal rights. By focusing on marriage equality only, we run the risk of sidelining other relevant issues significant to a truly equal society for the Tongzhi community. Sorry about the technical problem, and I think my time is up. I better stop here. Thank you.
And I'll just very quickly introduce Evans. And I think for the interest of time, Evans can offer maybe 4 minutes quick response to any main points raised by the previous panelists, and then we'll open up for Q&A. We still have 10 minutes break before the next panel, so I think we have time. Evans Chen does not need an introduction. He is a New York and Hong Kong-based critic, librettist, and independent filmmaker for more than a dozen fiction and documentary films, which have been screened around the world. His directorial debut, To Live, in 2001 was listed by Time Out as one of the 100 greatest Hong Kong films. A critical anthology of his work, Post-Colonialism, Diaspora, and Alternative History, The Cinema of Evans Chen, was published by HKU Press in 2015. Recently, he directed We Have Woods, which is the sequel to his acclaimed documentary, Raise the Umbrella. And so I'll turn things.
Thank you to you all for, Gina, Mike, and Shi-yan for such a wonderful presentation. And thanks to Nicole for hosting this and Alvin for organizing this. Nicole, Qiu's work will live on, and whether my film, whether I hold on or not, it doesn't matter. All three are very rich presentations. Thank you, Gina, for following my career. So she contextualized Montmartre within my work, the performative elements and all that, and the female protagonist, etc., and the queer concerns. Thank you for being able to contextualize it to the extent that I'm not aware of it myself. And my definition or exposition of intermediality, because of his theater background and also his interest in my work, and it's just very rich. And Mike is the one that wrote an essay on my film on Margaret Tan, the diva of the avant-garde pianism. The leading avant-garde pianist in the world. She's still going strong. She's 75 now, and she has a premiere coming up. His appreciation, or his discussion of Qiu and her work is also refreshing for me. And then with Shi-yan, that discussion of essayistic mode is, of course, quite central to my oeuvre, if I can say that. Actually, recently, Gina just, and me she conducted an interview about my film's essayistic mode, and I wish I had heard your presentation earlier, but anyway, it's very great. And in any case, it's great here to meet friends, far away, Ari, for translating the book, and being such a strong supporter of Qiu's work, and follow up by translating Jidawe's book, Membrance. I read many favorable reviews of that book, and I'm looking forward to reading that. And and also Qilan sang, I met her years ago at Duke. And this is the first time we met again virtually. And also Carlos, for being interested. And I'm, your section will be so many hours later. Thanks for staying up. Okay, so briefly, this is my response, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Let me look at the Q&A box, see if there are any questions. As taking advantage of my role as the moderator, actually all of the questions I initially prepared are already addressed by Gina, Mike, and Shi-yan's. Gina's focus on women as creative force and the intertextual quality, and focus on street performance and queer transnationalism. These themes will be picked up later on. So I think you know, in Evan's film, you connect Chou's life and her writing to the legalization of gay marriage in Taiwan. Can you say more about that as an editorial choice? I mean, Mike talked about as a legacy and as an affirmation. And Gina in the film also said that every social movement needs a martyr. So that comment actually strikes me a lot. So there's both a melancholic and also an affirmative legacy, right? I'm really interested in this contradictions, or rather this tension. If all of us can think about this, or Evans, would you like to say more about this?
Okay, yeah. Concerning the marriage equality, of course, I mean, is my influence because Qiu did kind of play a male role in her lesbian relationship about taking care of her or his wife, and she looked at her bunny as her child, and she's the father. And so I think that at least this more conventional concept of marriage was very much on her mind. So I would think that whatever that happened to her own life, I would think that she would welcome marriage equality. And in any case, I mean, her politics, and I think, you know, in terms of political structure, I mean, struggles in this world, it's often a struggle for equality wherever we are. And I mean, some of the biggest conflicts in the world today is about struggle for equality. So I think that I guess I'm not assuming too much, I hope, in contextualizing her legacy in social and political setting. But of course, I mean, life and death is always at this existential dimension to it. That, you know, God knows what, I mean, whether it's her decision or whether that's an involuntary choice. Involuntary, even in the sense that to be a martyr for marriage equality in Taiwan, and in a sense for the Sinophone world and for Asia. So I feel that her life and work could be placed in a larger context. And so I hope that, you know, that's my take on her life and work. Yeah.
Thanks. And see if we have other question in the in our own moderators and panelists chat room, and also from the attendees. Somehow I cannot see the Q&A. Oh, there's one. Yeah, Ari, please unmute.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say thank you to the organizers for your perseverance in putting this event together after so much, like the chronicle of time. It took this period of time in which this event matured as a chronicle of history. And I'm so glad that you were able to include a screening of Evan's amazing film and then have him here in person to speak with us. So I guess my question is just very general, and perhaps it will come up again and again in other parts of today's events, but I wondered, Evans, in the process, I mean, it takes a long time to put a film like this together. And something I was struck by in our interactions is your incredible ability, like a good interviewer, I guess, but also just your, you know, someone who's empathetic, able to really see into people, but your ability to get people to talk and to consolidate all kinds of information. I mean, Qiu is a figure who had attracted so much attention and so much speculation over the years, but people didn't have a lot of data. And then you come along and manage to meet up and speak with almost everyone who was close to her in certain ways. And not only to speak to them, but to bring them to tears, to give them a space to feel vulnerable and talk about her in public. And so I wondered, what is it like for you as the director to be on the other side of the lens of that experience? I mean, it's very interlocutive. Of course, we see the final product. We see this amazing film that gives us both documentary and an artistic, visual, visceral way of engaging with her material, but we don't necessarily see you behind the scenes, which is, obviously is one sign of great direction. But so I'm just curious if you had any comments to say about your own experience of engaging with so many personalities, people. The thing about Qiu that she brings out the passion in everyone, both positive and sometimes negative. What was that like for you?
Thank you, Ari, for bringing up that question. I mean, it was sheer coincidence. I have not been too diligent in following up on contemporary Chinese language literature. So I wasn't really aware of Qiu until I made the documentary on Dong Kai-cheng, and the Taiwan novelist Luo Yijun suddenly talked very passionately about Qiu. So I became curious. Then I looked up her novels, and then I realized, Ari, you have already translated her work into English. So I just feel that, already there's an international dimension to the project. RTHK was commissioning this series on Chinese writers. So I feel that, it's good for me to tackle that, because in a way, we share some parallel in life, meaning that I'm gay and I left Hong Kong for New York, and she left Taipei or Taiwan for Paris. To some extent is to escape from the repressive environment that we lived in. Then, I just have shared many common interests with Qiu. The novelist, the novel she read, Margaret Usener, or even Rilke, I'm sorry, I just have to. So, and her interest in film. My evaluation, of course, we have different focus. For her to declare that Tarkovsky was the greatest in the world and Jean-Luc Godard was second rate, of course, that's not my take on world cinema. In any case, there are many contact points. And so, I just, out of the blue, and approached Lai Sang-yin in Taiwan, her literary executive at the time. And Lai just gave me the green light. Over the years, actually, various filmmakers have approached the estate to make a film about Qiu. And I think Lai later told me that one reason that she gave me the green light was because I'm outside of Taiwan. I'm not muckraker. I'm not into gossips. So I could look at her live, just as a writer. And Lai also was aware that I was the translator of Susan Sontag into Chinese. I think that she felt that I'm maybe up to my task in making a film on Qiu. So it's just some luck in terms of, you know, who I could talk to. I mean, Lai Xiangyin lined up all the Taiwan interviewees for me. I mean, her Qiu's close friends and etc. Actually, Lai even approached Qiu's girlfriend at the time, and she would not agree to be interviewed. Is totally understandable. Must be still very traumatic for her. So I talked to them, and Qiu really has inspired a lot of loyalty, because apparently all these years, these friends would not talk about her, you know, or refuse to disclose anything, you know, too juicy, you know, so to speak, to the media or whoever curious writers. And I think there was some pent-up emotion. And I mean, I was stunned. I mean, she was gone for 10 years already when I made the film, and people were still in tears. Yeah. So I think that revealed the impact she had on people around her. And then, you know, the rest, you know, I mean, in terms of my literary interest, and I mean, through Ari, I was able to get in touch with Eileen Miles, you know, to talk about Qiu. And in a way, what surprised me is Sisu, Helen Sisu. I mean, how she was readily responsive to talk about Qiu. You know, she had vivid memories of this student, and she ended up writing a piece about her. So all these things just, in a way, as though they have a life of its own. And I just happened to be there and put it together. I mean, of course, I mean, my interest and my style, so to speak, is just part of, it's just being there, you know, I cannot escape from myself. And if it seems appropriate for some of the viewers, I'm glad, and I do wish Qiu's legacy will live on. There's one thing that, I mean, I also met Susan Sontag, and well, I can't really say that we are friends, but she did say one thing that to some extent I identify with. She said that I'm basically a conserver of culture. And in a way, you know, I want to conserve, you know, Qiu's legacy. And I did go out of my way. I actually was using my own money to expand the film into a full-length documentary because I feel that she deserved it. And I am very happy that the, the impact was there. I mean, her work's impact is there, and then for HKU to organize this conference today, I'm very appreciative.
With that note, I think because of the interest of time, and we already have kickstart the conference with such an exciting conversation. There was a question from Q&A from the attendee about male and female role in Chou's, and also in Chou's writings and the film. I would say if you watch the film, the parts from Eileen Miles really were addressing that and the contradictions and how both Qiu both conforms and dismantles that those stereotypical imagination of femaleness and gender roles. So, but and I think this question will definitely address it in subsequent panels and talks. So with that, let me just make a very quick announcement. We'll move to the next panel in 2 minutes, and then we'll still have 1 hour and 30 minutes, and then ends panel to around 11:50. But if it takes up to 12 noon, that's fine. And we're returning from lunch at the same time at 12:45. So next panel can test the PowerPoint slide, and everyone else can take the 2 minutes break.